So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever particular time you happen to decide to watch this lecture. This is a truncated version, a shorter version of the lecture from today, Tuesday the 24th, for those who could not make it. If you attended the course today, the meeting today on the 24th, you don't need to view this unless you really like reruns and you feel like you have the need. But what we're going to do is go over the rules of the course in a real short lecture. You are still responsible for the things that happened in the meeting today, questions that other students may have come up with that I answered in that course. So you may want to check with somebody who attended just to see if there's anything you missed or anything that really stuck out from their interpretation of attending that meeting. Let me start by saying this course is always interesting for me because we have such a mix of students. We have sophomores, juniors, seniors. We have security majors, safety majors, cybersecurity majors, even sports management in this particular course. It's really a mixed bag of things, right? Mixed bag of people. Which is good because what I want you to do while you're taking this course is to relate it to your own field of future expertise. So it's okay when we're talking about a security incident, security management, security staffing, those kinds of things. If you want to put it in the context of cybersecurity or safety, that's okay. I am not an expert in those things, but I really want you to get something out of the course. If you are taking security management and you plan on being a cybersecurity analyst, you plan on being a forensic analyst, you probably will not in your career have to go find a guard force, right? And decide whether it's going to be contracted or whether it's going to be proprietary and set that up. However, there's nothing wrong with knowing that stuff, and you may have to set up a contracted cadre of analysts to work big cases, and so put it in your context. So don't get hamstrung when I talk about physical security a lot and personnel security a lot. That's the focus of the course. It is a protective security course, but I want you to put it in your own context. So a little bit about your instructor. I've taken the time to go through and look at each of your transcripts and some histories that I can find on you, things that you've posted, because that's what I do. Okay, so I feel like I know some of you fairly well, and some I've had in classes before. If you don't know me, I'm the Director of Global Security for Pfizer, Inc., working mostly in the physical risk mitigation space. I've been doing this for 40 years, 6 of it in the military, and I'm in my 35th year now with Pfizer and Pfizer's legacy companies. When I say legacy companies, we go through a number of mergers, acquisitions. In the course of a year, we go through several small ones, but I've been through 3 major ones. So I've worked for the same company under 3 different flags. But I've worked in every facet, physical risk, security technology, which I do a lot of now, investigations, which have calmed some since COVID's taken people off the work site, but I've done a number of pretty good investigations. I did executive protection in my younger days when I was much fitter and thinner. And brand protection. We had products like Viagra, which, in case you didn't know, was the #1 counterfeited item in the world, more so than U.S. cash. And so I worked in brand protection for a while. I have a doctorate in education from Creighton University. Basketball fans have probably heard of Creighton. I have a master's in criminal justice from Boston University, a bachelor of arts in organizational development and management from Spring Arbor University, and an associate in general studies from Jackson College in beautiful Jackson, Michigan. And that's the one that I'm probably most proud of because it really gave me a taste for education. I did those over a very long span of time. Which I think is something that, well, I'll share with you in a second, but I did not go rapid fire from one degree to the next. I'm a certified protection professional. It's CPP, which ASIS International, it's the highest ranking or certification that a physical personnel protective security person can hold. I'm a graduate of the International Security Management Association's Senior Executive Leadership Program. That's boot camp at Northwestern University, essentially. I have attended all and passed all levels of the READ technique of interview and interrogation, which I talk about a little bit in our investigations course. And I know some of you may have taken the basic READ course. It's pretty cool. It's the one thing that's never failed me in this is that particular technique. I use others, but that's the one I love the best. I have a certificate in human resources development from Villanova. So that's me professionally, me as me. I've earned a diploma or degree in every decade of my life. So I got just like the rest of you, got your kindergarten diploma when I was 4 years old, and graduated middle school, and then graduated high school when I was 17. And then in my late 20s, I got my associate's degree. In my mid 30s, I got a bachelor's degree. In my late 40s, I got a master's degree. And in my early 50s, I got my doctorate. So I've been going to school for essentially 4 decades. I have just turned, in fact, this term I will have a birthday and I will turn 62. So I'm now looking for that next challenge and that next degree. Once I retire from the Pfizer job, I plan on taking another degree, either forensic psychology or potentially law school. But I say all that not to brag, but to tell you that I understand what the workload is. I did that while raising a family. So, I know that I worked a full-time job, raised a family, went to school, worked on my dissertation, flew around to do research. I get the workload of school. I get that sometimes it's not as hard as students portray it to be, and other times you're just overwhelmed. So, you're amongst friends in that. I go to bed early, and I mention that because I encourage you to reach out to me if you have questions. But if you call past 10 o'clock, you're probably going to wait till the next morning because I get up early. What I do is I watch American Dad, and then I kind of skim over Rick and Morty because I'm not a big fan, and try to get one of the Family Guys in on Adult Swim every night because that's just my cartoon fix. My wife just kind of shakes her head at me and rolls over and doesn't watch with me, but that's kind of my thing. Like I said, I have a birthday this term. No presents. Just I will give everybody the opportunity to guess what day that is. See if there's clues out there. Let's see how your forensics are when you go out on the internet. See what you can find. I enjoy swimming and shooting baskets to unwind. My record is 13 3-pointers, unguarded, 13 in a row. I really like the deep shot. And when I say swim, I actually do some water resistance training. I don't look like a triathlete by any stretch, and I'm not one by any stretch. But I do believe that it really helps me unwind, and I feel good when I do it, so I'm going to do it. I'm married. I have 2 children, Nick and Melissa. Nick is 38, Melissa is 30, although she keeps claiming to be 26, and I think she's going to claim to be 26 until she dies. I have 4 grandchildren, ranging in age from 13 down to 3, and today's the 24th, and my oldest granddaughter is 9 today. I have 2 very spoiled dogs. They're Maltipoos. I always had big dogs my whole entire life, Huskies and Malamutes and Great Pyrenees. And we moved not too many years ago and decided let's go with small dogs. So I have Dr. Diesel and Dr. Daisy. You will hear them barking in the background. I apologize, sort of, because, look, this is an online course, and when I'm talking to you on the phone, there's going to be noises in the background too. That's kind of how life works now, and we're all going to live through it. So what do we hope to learn this term? Well, we're going to talk a lot about how a security manager uses relationships to add to their success. The first several units are about enterprise security risk management in terms of how you relate to other functions within an organization. Now, some of you have worked in professional jobs before, and you kind of know this stuff, but I would say very few because you're still relatively young, right? Most of you have not worked a 40-hour position for a big company for very long. And we're going to talk about the different entities in a company and how you work with them as a security manager. And the same would be true for a safety manager and even in sports management. Each of these entities we'll talk about, each of these departments exist, and you need to think about how you would interact with them. We're going to talk a little bit about internal and external stakeholders. Mainly, when we talk about external stakeholders, we'll be talking about the police, and then we'll also be talking about vendors that you use for contracting services and or buying goods. We're going to talk about planning and budgeting. There's not math. Don't freak out. I will share with you that in my graduate study, I was a straight A student all the way across the board, all the way through my doctorate, except for one class on my master's statistics, and I got an A-, and I felt shamed because I just really always saw myself as being a really good student, and A- wasn't good enough at the time. Now I've lightened up some, and as my daughter told me when she graduated, she said, "Hey, Dad, C's get degrees, relax, right?" But it's not a lot of math, but we'll talk about budgeting and how to build a budget. We'll talk about those external partnerships and the police, and it might surprise you or it might not, to see what police really think about security. There's a lot of research, and we'll read some of that research out of both the U.S. and Australia. Excuse me. And it helps for you to understand what the police generally think about security when you're cooperating with them, so you can understand what their motivations are and what yours should be. And then we'll talk a little bit about the intersection of management and leadership in security management. And those who study leadership will understand, management is how you set things up, and leadership is whether or not you follow through on that setup. I mean, that's the most simple explanation for leadership in this field that I can think of. But we're going to look at an actual case of a security company that went horribly wrong, and how they could have fixed things. And what we're looking for in that unit is your own opinion of that, which is kind of a fun exercise. Previous classes really enjoyed it. So we're 100% online, but there will be weekly deliverables. This is not a 100% online asynchronous course where at the end of the term you turn in a bunch of work. You will have things to do every week, be it a discussion board, a quiz, a very short paper. I'm not real big on long papers. In fact, there's only one paper due in this entire course, and it is actually your final. We'll talk about that in a bit. But you have things to do every week. So it's online. You can tune into the course anytime you want, view the lectures, do the reading. But I start the class every Monday at 12:01 a.m. and I end it on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. And you can work on it anytime during the week during that time frame. There's reading, there's a lecture, and then writing or a quiz every week. So always going to be some reading, always going to be a lecture, sometimes writing, sometimes quiz. I really try to keep things balanced. It's very easy in an online course to just start throwing work at you. I would rather cover less stuff and have you really understand it and really delve into things and form your opinions and be able to apply this stuff when you get out into the real world than to throw a lot of theory at you. And some students really enjoy the theory and they enjoy, reading a very thick textbook, but doesn't work for me. I want you to be prepared for that JOB, okay? The quizzes, discussions, midterm, and the final paper make up the final grade. I may, at my own discretion, throw extra credit at people. And I should throw it at people. I throw it at everybody. You have the equal opportunity to do it. But generally speaking, I won't do that. I keep a very close eye on the average grade in the course. There's a lot of great tools in D2L that instructors can use. And if I see that the entire course class does really poorly on a particular quiz, and my quizzes, if you've talked to people that have had me before, the quizzes are probably the toughest part. I don't want you to get jammed up on them. I don't want you to get nervous about them, right? They're 5-point quizzes. Don't worry about it. If you get a 3 out of a 5, just move on because you'll probably do better in the discussions. Because if you're active in the discussions, it's easy to make the full credit on that. And the final paper, I've never had anybody fail the final paper, not even close. So don't get too worried about it. But that's what makes up the final grade. There may or may not be extra credit. And if indeed the entire class really does poorly on a quiz, then usually I'll assign some extra credit. Say, okay, everybody kind of bombed that. Because realistically, if everybody bombs a quiz, I can go through and even look each question, and I can see that, everybody got question 7 and question 9 wrong. Then that's not your fault. That's mine. Then it's a bad question. There's a point where it goes from the students not understanding to instructors writing a bad question. So I'll give you the opportunity to do well. Every week builds on the one before. You can't really catch up in this thing. If you fall behind by more than 1 week, I would suggest that your grade's going to suffer and you may not be able to catch up. So keeping up is the big thing. Just like for every class you take, the university, and every university requires a syllabus for a course. Mine is 13 pages. Is it boring? Absolutely. But is it informative? Absolutely. Look at it. Before you call me on something, look at the syllabus. If it's something you think would be covered in the syllabus, go and look at it. Use it as a reference document. I have a question about, when's the final paper due? I put that in there. Everything's in the syllabus. Each week is broken down for you. And in fact, I'm so hell-bent at making sure you read that syllabus so we all start in the same place. I dedicated this entire week to just the rules of the road, and there's a syllabus quiz worth 5 points. That's the easiest 5 points you're ever going to earn. But it's so important to me. Let's go over it together real quick, just so there's no questions. Again, I'm going to go over the highlights. You are responsible for understanding the syllabus. So the first thing you may notice after you go through and you read all the stuff on the top, which has my office hours in it and contact information and the description of the course real quick from the course catalog, is that there is no textbook. I'll give you articles, videos, journal pieces. Some of them are rather complex reads, especially the journal pieces. Just do your best. I mean, try to read them and make sense of them. It may take a little while. If I give you a journal piece that's complex, though, I'll make it a shorter journal piece than I would if it were easy reading, right? I'm all about trying to get the time to balance for you so that you can anticipate how long you're going to spend in this course. I usually use text. Those of you who had me before for investigations in security law know that I use text. Excuse me, not for investigations, but rather for physical security and security law. Know that I use textbooks for those. And really, the security law one, you could probably find the cases that we work someplace else, but this puts them all in one place for you. I'm still deciding whether or not next term I'm going to require a book for that. Physical security, although people say, well, we didn't use the book much, it is a fantastic desk reference for anybody that's in physical security. I'm going to continue with that book, but I'm trying to find cheaper ways to get it, right? I want it available by Kindle if you want to go that route, paperback if you want to go that route. I always look for books that are cheap. Remember, I had 2 children that went through college too. At the same time, I was still going. So books was like, a major expense. It was like a car payment for us every month. So I get that. But I'm not using one. I'm going to supply this stuff. What I'd like at the end of the term, please, is for you to give me your honest feedback. You don't have to consider the cost. Well, I don't want a book because I didn't have to spend the money. Well, by the end of the term, it's too late. You're not going to take the course again and spend money on a text if I decide to get one next time. What I'd like is your honest professional opinion about whether you thought you learned okay without having a text, or whether you're just somebody who likes the anchor, if you will, of a text to relate back to. And if you learn better that way, I just kind of like everybody's opinion on that. And your opinion does matter, especially in those end of course ratings, because I really look those over and make changes in my courses as people make suggestions. In the syllabus, you're going to see a big section called General Policy. And it's a big section. And it's where I try to put everything I can think of. And I can't think of everything, but everything I can think of that might trip us up. And I guess the best way to remember what the general policy is that I'm the general and I get to make and interpret the policies. Now that sounds harsh, doesn't it, right? I'm big, you're little, I'm right, you're wrong. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we can't anticipate everything, right? Things happen during the term. I mean, if I look back at syllabuses from 18 months ago, I'm betting money that nobody said, in the event of a pandemic, we may have to take your course online. Because nobody really thought about that, did we? So anything can happen. We got to stay flexible. And I can change the rules only so much as they don't hurt you, right? We're already an online class. But if I say, look, we're not going to have our test on week 7. We're going to have it in week 8. I will go through and see what is going on at the university week 8. I will listen to your reasons why week 8 is not good for you, and we'll try to make some arrangements. But I can change the rules only if it doesn't hurt your chance for success. But we got to stay flexible. Things happen. If we haven't learned that in the last 18 months, I don't know if we've learned anything. So let's just, stay loose and go with the flow, and know that I am trying very hard to keep your life balanced and regimented as much as I can. This is an online course, so we're going to use technology, and technology is rife with issues, right? It's not will technical issues arise. It's when will they? And the answer is just don't panic. Okay, I will tell you that at least twice this term, and I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm not doing it to mess with you, but at least twice you will be the first one in to look at the lecture, and it will not open up. And it's because I forgot to check one box or another. The one good thing about D2L is that it gives me all kinds of information. The one bad thing about it is when you set things up, you've got to make sure you've got every little box checked, and sometimes you have to check 2 or 3 of them for the same thing. And I miss things. I'm a human being. I admit it. Don't panic. You just text me and say, hey, I'm trying to get into a lecture and it's not open. And I usually get those pretty quick and I jump on them. If not, come back later. And if it delays you, a technical issue delays you for very long, we'll just make an extension, right? Now, I don't want to hear that, my network went down at my house again because I opted for the $9.95 version of a network. If you're taking an online course, you need to have a good connection. Most of you are close enough to campus that if you needed to, you could go there. Every public library has a good connection these days. So, I understand that once in a while, everybody's internet fails. Mine does. Whenever I see the Comcast truck go by the house, I start to wince because I work from home in my Pfizer job and in this job, and it means my entire day right? The 8 to 4 is going to be upset, and so is the the 4 to 9. So I get that, but things will happen. Videos might fail. I use dynamic links a lot, so it just takes you to a spot on the internet, and I test it on a Sunday, and by Monday somebody's changed the link. It can happen. That's the nature of the internet. It's not, it's a very dynamic place. Gremlins just sometimes get in there and upset things, right? The university puts a new security protocol in place, and now we can't get into stuff until we make some changes. We're going to muddle through. We're still going to learn. If it takes you longer to do it, if you run into a problem, you just basically shoot up the flare. You raise your hand, say, Dr. Wisniewski, I'm having a problem with my technology, and we talk about it, and we muddle through, and we get it done. Late work. So there are 38 students in this class. I'm teaching another class, I believe, that has 21 now. I recorded their lecture. I had different numbers in it only because it fluctuated quite a bit. A couple weeks before school starts, everybody's adding classes and leaving classes. But I have 2 classes. I work a full-time job, as I told you, and that's usually 40 hours during the day. I try to keep my daytime very regimented because I know my phone's going to ring at night for that job too. I understand reasons why stuff is late, but I hate excuses. Okay? Just think about the fact there's no attendance requirement for this course. I'm not going to count your nose to see if you've been here, right? I can go into the system to see if you've done things, and I may do that for another reason, which we can talk about, but I'm not going to require that you be someplace at a particular time, right? Let me fix this slide. Yeah, I'm still a perfectionist, sorry. But there's no requirement for you to be someplace at a certain time. The only requirement is to turn things in on time. So think of the fact that you can be wherever you want to be at any particular time as long as you get your work in on time. Now, late work is something that we have to really fix. And in previous courses, I've been very lax about it. Many of you have had me before. If you call me before something's due and say, I just had a family emergency, and don't lie to me. Look, I got sick. We all get sick, right? Heck, half the world is sick these days. I get that stuff. Just tell me the truth, why you can't get it done. Tell me before it's due. And if it's something that you just plumb forgot, then you tell me that after it was due. I just forgot, and you may even get away with one of those. Or you can turn it in for reduced credit. What I can't have is, and this has happened in the past, students who do all their work up until week 2, and then I hear from them again in week 7 saying, how do I pass this class? And the answer is you don't. Okay, if you disappear, if I have to put your face on a milk carton to find you, then there's very little chance you're going to pass this course, and there's not a lot I can do for you. That's totally on you. And so you need to be around. You need to turn your work in on time. That's the attendance, if you will, is turning your work in on time. So please, no late work. And if you have to have late work, if there's an unavoidable reason, then you need to contact me before it's due, if at all possible, or as soon as it's going to be late, rather than after the fact, and tell me what's up so we can work on a plan together. There is, however, revised work, and revised work simply means that you turned in an assignment, and I looked at it and I said, nope. Not that it's bad work. Look, if you turn in garbage, it's garbage in, garbage out, and the out is the grade, right? But if you turn in something and you just didn't get what the assignment was, I think we've all had that where we've turned something in, the instructor says, this is not what I was looking for. I asked for a glass of water and you handed me a ham sandwich, right? Your intentions were good, but it doesn't help me for what my need was, and my need was a certain type of assignment. If that happens, I may, by invitation, ask you to resubmit. We'll talk about what the time frame is for that. We'll talk about whether or not there'll be a reduction in grade, because I want to be fair to everybody in the class. But if you're a generally good student and you really have an assignment where you just missed the mark, I will generally contact you and say, yeah, I looked this over, and no, we're not going to put a grade on this one. Let's try this again, and here's where you kind of went sideways. So that's by invitation only. Please don't ask if you can redo an assignment. If I don't ask you, then you can't redo it. Discussion posts. So there are a fair number of discussion posts in this class. I really like discussions. I like them to be active, by the way. They come out on Monday, as I said. Normally your initial post, if it's a post required with replies, then your initial post is due on usually Wednesday or Thursday, and I will tell you when that's going to be. It's normally on a Thursday, but we have some holidays, so you have to be very careful about keeping up with when things are due, and I always go through the deliverables at the end of every lecture. The initial post should be in third person. So don't say, I think this and I think that, unless I ask you to do it in first person. If you're not familiar with writing in third person, you don't have any I, me. It's always as if you're writing from outside of the thing, right? Research shows that people tend to enjoy Dr. Wisniewski's classes more than any other. Okay, I wouldn't find a citation for that probably, but heck, let's go with that. That's a third-person statement. Research shows that this happens, right? I like going to Dr. Wisniewski's classes first person. Okay, what we want to do in that initial post is I want you to tell me what the reading and the lecture and other references that I gave you for that week, what they inform you of. What it informs people of, but I don't want it to be in first person. Try to keep, if the word I in there, me is in there, then you're going the wrong direction with it. Okay? Politics, religion, very important to people. They're very important to me as well. But we are academics in a security management course. We are not studying philosophy, rhetoric, religion, or politics. And so please just keep them out of your posts. In fact, you are responsible for going over your post to make sure that those things are not in there. It simply just doesn't belong here. It's not that they're not important, not that I don't respect it, but at the end of the term, nobody in the class should know what your political leanings or your religious feelings are. That's the best way to look at it. Be collegial. It's okay to agree to disagree. I understand your point, but I still think my initial point is better suited to answer the question. Rather than saying, oh man, you are wrong, you are so wrong, you are amazingly wrong, right? If you start to rant, if you get rude, if you're not collegial, you will hear from me quick. That is the quickest way to find your way out of this course, right? You only really get one warning in that. So this is not Facebook, this is not a rant, it's not anonymous either. So just keep it collegial. If you disagree with somebody, that's fine. In fact, that's what makes for better discussions. To say, I understand your point. Not saying you agree with it, but you understand it. You understand what they're saying. And I disagree for the following reasons. And that person may come back and say, I see what you're saying. However, I still believe that blah, 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 blah. That's how people should be in discussions. No rants, no rudeness. That's a loser. So office hours and contacting me. Office hours are posted. Don't get hung up on office hours, because I don't. The university tells us we need to post a certain number of office hours, and my office hours are actually in the evening on Wednesdays and in the mornings on Saturdays. Not real early, don't worry. But I try to make it when students are actually working on stuff, and students tend to work on stuff on, after dinner time or on weekends. It's just because many of you have jobs, you have other things going on. And so that's why I have my office hours a lot different than other people. Plus, I'm off campus, right? But I don't mind being contacted at other times. Students contact me all the time. I get text messages from students and former students, probably one a day, easily. And when school's in session, it's probably closer to 5 or 6 a day. That's fine. When you're working on something, you have a question, you're not sure where to go. I guess you probably wait for office hours for your other professors, but, why are you doing that? If I'm awake and you text me and say, I have a problem, or you send me an email, and if you're sending an email, always send it through the SRU system, please. I may say, okay, look, are you able to take a phone call? Because it may be easier for me to just explain to you. Look at that as practice for talking to your boss. Every one of you is going to have a boss someday, and you're going to have to talk to him on the phone. And I've not had a boss in the same state as me for the last 15 years. I have had bosses in different countries from me several times. And there's time differences. In one case, we had a time difference that was 8 hours. So if I had a question, I wasn't going to call him at lunchtime for me because he was already getting ready for bed. So, yes, us old people go to bed early. So just think of it as practice for talking to a future boss. And practice makes things easier. So let's just pretend that I'm your boss. And if you have a question, you're talking to your boss. You get more familiar with it. You get more comfortable with it. It's going to make for a better experience for you in the workplace. Let's do it. I generally travel a lot. Obviously, with things going this term, I doubt that I'm going to be traveling at all. I normally have several flights each year that are over 20 hours with connections, usually Asia, Latin America. fair amount in Europe, but this term, probably not. I have no flights over 20 hours, so I should be pretty available to you. And if I do have any times where I'm going to be in a different time zone, I'll let you know that. Don't let that stop you from calling me. So if you looked at the syllabus, you'll see that I have a weekly breakdown of what we're going to talk about, what we're going to cover, and the number of points per assignment, what type of assignment I have scheduled for that week. It's all subject to change, like I said, but I think, for the most part, I stick pretty close to that. But if something really exciting happens in the world that is related to security management, it may not be exciting for you, but something that happens in the industry that we can really learn from, then we're going to toss something aside. There are some units that I think are more important than others. I think that's, standard for any course. And I will potentially move things around if something really cool happens that I think that you need to know. It's a contemporary issue that would really make you a better security manager in the future. We'll do that. Again, this is a protective security course, but I want you to try to relate it to your own discipline if that's what you so choose. And maybe the cybersecurity people want to relate it to protective security. There are questions on your certification exams related to that. Maybe you want to just try it. Maybe it's safety people may want to relate it to safety or to protective security, because oftentimes those are cognate fields in the workplace. It's really your call. You can either relate it to what your specialty is, which I know everybody's major, or relate it to protective security no matter what your major is, so you can get a taste for a different field so that you broaden your skill set when you go out there to try to get that job. Academic integrity goes without saying, right? You can't cheat your way to the top. It's not going to work. We're not politicians. No, I didn't say that. So I'm keeping politics out of it. I can see what you've accessed, when you accessed it, for how long you accessed it in D2L. Okay, I don't hold that against you unless you call me and, I've had students call and say, oh, I'm carrying a C, or it's a midterm and I've got a D and I'm trying really hard. And I say, yeah, you're trying really hard, but you went into the discussion board for 6 minutes last week, and you posted something that you wrote during that 6 minutes, and you never went back in again to look to see if you wanted to respond to somebody to get additional points. And I use rubrics for grading, so you can't lose. You look at what you have to do. If you match the rubric, you should be doing fine. So I don't hold that against you, but if you're going to tell me you tried, then I can challenge that to make sure that you did try. And I do use all tools available to scan papers and discussions. If we've used a discussion before, if we've used a paper before, and I've taught this course, this is my fourth time teaching this course. Everybody that wrote papers in the past, all of those are in Turnitin, and everything goes through Turnitin. And if I get a hit that's more than a certain amount, obviously we're talking about the same stuff, so you're going to have some common sentences here and there, quotations. But if I get too much, we'll talk. I did have a graduate student at another university one time use the Ontario Investigators Guide for private investigators in Ontario. They have a 5-page guide, and he turned in a paper. And I wasn't using Turnitin or any, they had a different version at that school. But I had just read that because I had to engage a private investigator in Canada on a brand protection case because I couldn't go work it myself. And so I was not aware of what the regulations. I want to make sure I was getting somebody qualified. So I went in and read that. And a week later, this guy turned it in as his own work. Didn't need to scan it, but that's when I started to scan it. It was that aha moment that, wow, people actually do cheat. The quizzes have test banks. It is very unlikely that you will get the exact same quiz as somebody else in the class. I say that because usually once per term, I will get somebody who gets like a 1 out of 10 questions right on a quiz. And if I went and I matched up, because they're usually multiple choice, true and false, if I match up the answers they gave, it matches somebody else's quiz. You can't say, hey, give me the answers to the 10 questions on Dr. Wisniewski's quiz, because the questions are not going to be the same. They're coming out of a bank. And even if there's just 10 questions, the answers and the questions themselves are in different order. You can't say here's the answers. 1 is A, 2 is B, 3 is A. You're going to lose because D2L mixes it all up for you. And plagiarism, forms of cheating, it's going to get you bounced. That's just the rule, right? And I don't turn back on that rule. And in case you didn't know, if you are removed from this university for any type of disciplinary, including plagiarism and cheating, you don't get your tuition back. I don't know, most students don't think about it that way, but you're going to be paying student loans on something that you didn't get the benefit of forever if if you decide to cheat. So, just don't do it. Very quickly, and the last thing that I just want to cover on the syllabus, and there is more, so I want you to make sure you read it through. But if you have any type of disability, it will be accommodated. I need to make sure accommodations are fair and always in line with the university policies. So if you believe you have something that is holding you back from doing well in the course that would potentially classify as a disability, I encourage you to talk to the Office of Disability Services here at SRU, and they will evaluate and they will potentially give you an accommodation for different things like extra time on quizzes, although I don't time my quizzes, so don't worry about that. But if you believe that there's something just holding you back, I encourage you to go get that checked from the Office of Disability Services. That way I can ensure that you're being treated fairly and that everybody else in the class is also being treated fairly because your disability is something that they will verify. Okay, coming toward the end. Don't worry. What we're going to cover. This week we'll do introductions, and there is a format for introductions. You'll also do that syllabus quiz. We'll talk about security as a relationship-driven discipline in future weeks, and enterprise security risk management and how we interact to provide better security when we talk to human resources, to finance, to IT, to engineering services, to legal and regulatory partners within our organization and externally, and external partners, mainly the police, although other external partners as well. We're going to talk about how to build a security team. There are lots of ways to do that. There are things that you probably don't want to hire in-house to do that you want to contract. Sometimes it's because of training, sometimes it's because of cost, but it is a fact of life, and we will talk about that. We'll talk about business enablement. The more you can do with your security team to help others, the more they're going to help you. Remember, this is a course in security management that is geared toward helping you do better in the workplace. We are relating this directly to the workplace. This isn't a lot of theory, although there's some theory in the course, but we're going to apply it. And business enablement helps you become more popular, if you will, because you have the resources with a security team to do certain favors that are perfectly legal and help the business, and we want to make sure you learn how to do those. Security leadership versus management, again, doing the right thing and then doing the thing right. We want to talk about that. We'll have a unit on networking. I'm big on LinkedIn. I will tell you that I've done in the past, pre-COVID, I teamed everybody up with someone in the security field, and they basically worked with them for a week. However, it really can't be done right now. I mean, COVID has really put everything on its ear, and people are busy doing other stuff, a lot of emergency management in our field. So generally speaking, we'll do an exercise on LinkedIn to get your profiles tuned up, to get them professionalized. In the past, I will say that cybersecurity students have panned this effort, saying, oh, that was a waste of a week. I already had a LinkedIn page. With very few exceptions, I've seen their LinkedIn pages, and they could have benefited just as much as everybody else from paying attention that week. Some of you in this course have some very good pages, which I've looked at, prior to this lecture. But generally speaking, even when students have them, there are things you can do, and we'll also open up my contacts so you can look and see if there's anybody there that you would like an introduction to. And then we'll talk about the security manager as a buyer and administrator, the boring stuff you have to do. The buying part is the tough part because there are some laws around that. You can really jam yourself up when you start to use other people's money to buy stuff, and so we're going to talk about the proper way to do that. Okay, real quick before we close out, just a couple more slides to go. Tests and exams. There'll be a midterm, and it may be multiple choice, essay, or some other format. I'm still deciding. Usually do a two-parter. One part looks like a quiz, the other part looks like an essay, but I'm not so sure. We do have a break this term, unlike last term, and so I don't want to overload you on that midterm. But there will be a midterm, okay? There's a final, and the final is not an exam, it is a reflection paper. You're going to use the set format. Those who've had me before know that I am a strict constructionist when it comes to APA formatting, right? It's what is used in the social sciences, and therefore it is what we use in this course. I know some of you are taking cybersecurity, and I don't know in safety whether you use MLA or not, but this is a social science course, therefore you will learn APA. I will do pre-reads on those papers if you get them done early enough, and I'm going to give you plenty of time to get those done. They really are a paper that I give you a format, so don't try to write it ahead of time because there are certain things I ask for different every term. It has to be done on time because I have to turn in grades. I give everybody actually usually, I think I put it in the syllabus this time, the Sunday at the end of the term, right? So you even get the extra weekend to work on it if you need to. But if you turn it in after that, I've got to turn in grades within a day. I actually take a couple days vacation from work to do your grades in the end, and I'm not going to wait for people's papers. If it's not there by the time it's due, then it's a 0, and it's a big chunk of the grade, and it's a pretty easy thing to do because that is in first person. But again, we'll talk a little bit about that, but that's what the final is. It's not a final exam, and I will give you the opportunity to get it done and turn it in the first day of finals week, because you will have the parameters for the paper so that you can do it then and concentrate on your other stuff. Okay, so this week's deliverables, and you'll see this and the next slide on everything I do. The week's deliverables. So at the end of each lecture, I will tell you what is due this week. Okay, view the lecture. Okay, you did that. You're done. Thank you for your attention. Read the syllabus by the end of the week. The end of the week is Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Take the syllabus quiz by the end of the week. Okay, do an introduction post. I'd like you to do that by Thursday. I will accept a little bit lateness on this first one. I know I'm going back on what I said about late work, but because you're getting this on Tuesday rather than Monday. But it's an introduction post. Do me a favor, read the directions on that. The biggest way to get something kicked back when it comes to discussions is to not use paragraphs. Everybody's got their pet peeve, and that's mine, team. If you write everything in one big block, you're going to get it back. You got to use paragraphs. And I actually outline what I want you to write. And if you just follow the numbers, make each number a paragraph. In this one, it's a fluff piece. And then I want you to look over the intro posts that others put in there and just say hello to people that you don't know. Ask them a question about themselves, perhaps something that they wrote in. I ask a question in there about what you would do if somebody handed you 10 grand. Usually get some pretty interesting answers to that. And, just go in and say hello to some of your classmates. That's it for this week. So I'm not traveling this week, just like everybody else in the world, other than I'm going back home on Friday morning out of Pittsburgh, and I fly Pittsburgh to Detroit to Grand Rapids where I live, so it's like 2 half-hour flights. I really appreciate the fact that I'm sitting in first class for a half-hour flight. I mean, it's the silliest thing in the world because you don't even get up high enough for them to bring you a Coca-Cola and a candy bar. But feel free to reach out. Okay, even when you know I might be away, I can't help you if you don't give me the chance. And I want you to remember something, that you paid for this, either through student loans or your own cash or a scholarship where you're not really paying any cash, but you're using your time. You paid for this, and I'm obligated to provide a service. Now, that doesn't mean I'm obligated to give you an A when you want an A or to give you everything you want. But I take it very seriously that I have an obligation to you as a student as well. And I think that if we can just mutually agree that we have an obligation to each other during this 15 weeks, we'll get along great and things will go smooth. That's my cell phone number. You can text me at that number. There's my email address. It's in the SRU directory. Feel free to use that. With that, everybody have a great week. And I will see you in the discussion boards because you'll see I'm pretty active in there, at least early in the week too, especially. But try to get those in by Thursday if you can. And don't forget the syllabus quiz and reading the syllabus. Have a great week, everybody.